Shuan Yu walked Shu back to her quarters and then returned to his own dorm. As he arrived, he spotted Fung waiting outside and wondered why he was there. Fung explained that he had been waiting for him. Shuan Yu ushered him into the living room and asked what was going on. Fung told him that he had met Hui. Shuan Yu's concern deepened and he asked if Hui had finished his isolation. Fung shifted the conversation to a more important matter as he asked Shuan Yu for a favor. He wanted him to attempt the dual assist on him again, as he hoped to achieve a mutation similar to Hui's. Shuan Yu pointed out that Fung's body wasn't ready for such a transformation. Despite this, he insisted that if the first attempt failed, they could try again. He stressed that this was his only chance. After a moment of hesitation, Shuan Yu reluctantly agreed to give it a try. Fung rushed back to his dorm without wasting a moment. Then they quickly logged into the Duluo world. The familiar rush of power surged through Fung as the two clusters of blue-silver grass wrapped around his body, amplifying his strength. This time he held on longer as he pushed through the strain for 3 intense seconds. But the pressure built uncontrollably within him, and his body swelled like an overfilled balloon until it could no longer contain the force. With a sharp, gut-wrenching burst, he exploded, with fragments of his effort scattered across the surroundings. Time and time again, he endured this cycle, and his body relentlessly grew and shattered under the weight of the amplification. As he struggled through the repeated explosions, Shuan Yu watched and felt something start to awaken inside him. It wasn't just Fung pushing his limits. He could sense his own strength rising as well. It suddenly hit him that maybe they should stop before something went wrong, so he suggested they take a break for now. Yet Fung stood firm with his teeth clenched in stubborn determination as he refused to give in. He insisted on pushing through the pain once more, despite everything urging him otherwise. The exhaustion weighed heavily on him, but the fire within refused to be extinguished. A loud explosion tore through the air and dark energy spreaded, and Fung clenched his teeth so hard that blood spilt from his mouth. The tension rose with every blast, 20 in all, until Shuan Yu turned to him. They couldn't keep going like this, he warned. Otherwise, his mind would give out. Then, in a flash, he disappeared and left Fung standing there alone. His words still hung in the air, and all Fung could do was stare at the empty space with blank and tired eyes. The air around him felt heavy with loneliness, and without thinking, he disconnected from the Duoluo world. When Fung opened his eyes, tears threatened to spill over. The painful thought kept bothering him. He couldn't understand why this was happening. He wondered bitterly as he grasped his injured hand until blood seeped through it. Frustration gathered in his chest. He had worked so hard, pushed himself to the edge, but no matter what he did, he just couldn't keep up with his friends. His thoughts ran out of control, and suddenly he found himself wrapped in cold chains with eyes watching him from all sides. He struggled against the restraints as he shouted that he didn't want to be trapped. His voice cracked as he cried out for more strength. A voice echoed in the darkness and asked him why he wanted to be strong. The question lingered and he hesitated to answer. The memories flashed before his eyes. He saw his friends, Shuan Yu and Qian Lei, and the time they had spent together and the joy and laughter they had shared. He realized that all he wanted was to stay by their side and never be left behind. Being with them made him happy, and he longed to grow with them and face the future together. Tears fell as he admitted to himself that he needed to be strong, not just for his own sake, but to be someone his friends could rely on, someone who could stand with them and help the Federation. His breath slowed as he lay on the cold ground with the weight of his emotions pressed down on him, but then something began to stir inside him. A strange energy flowed into his chest. His tired mind was confused as he tried to figure out what this new, unknown force could be. A strange light stirred in Fung's chest, something he couldn't ignore, and it was getting stronger with each passing second. A spear emerged from the light, radiating energy that spread all around. His mind was foggy with confusion as he tried to make sense of what was happening to him. Just then, a white dragon appeared before his eyes, and he wondered what this creature was. As their eyes met, he noticed a fiery intensity within the dragon's gaze, unyielding, determined, and fierce. Those eyes strangely reminded him of his own. In an instant, an explosion of light erupted from the impact that engulfed him completely. Outside the dormitory, Shuan Yu called out to see if Lei had returned. He wondered aloud where he could be. Lei responded that he was right at the door and urged Shuan Yu to open it for him. He mentioned that he had brought what Shuan Yu had bought at the auction. Once inside, Shuan Yu thanked him warmly as Lei handed him a small box. The box glimmered in the light as Lei announced that it contained the gemstone Shuan Yu had purchased. He handed it over, then, as if unable to contain his enthusiasm, revealed that he also bought something at the auction. He laughed as he claimed that he had scored a real bargain. Shuan Yu, however, remarked that it was no bargain. He probably just bought it because it was cheap. He also added that was what he usually went for, then asked if Menkin had picked up anything at the auction. Lei replied that she hadn't. Worse, she had mocked him for buying what he did. He complained about her and called her a long-haired girl with little knowledge, one who clearly had no clue what she was talking about. Then, as if to emphasize his point, he repeated that he had indeed purchased something. Shuan Yu asked to see it. Lei opened the box, and as he did, a radiant golden glow flooded from it as inside, a coin shined with vibrant energy. Shuan Yu leaned in and silently wondered if this was what he bought as he tried to make sense of it. He noted that it might have been an antique gold coin. Lei shook his head and explained that Shuan Yu was unable to grasp it fully. He elaborated that his father was a renowned expert in archaeology who specialized in ancient coins. He pointed out that based on the intricate patterns etched into the coin, its origins could be traced back to the Spirit Hall, a staggering 30,000 years in the past. While it might have appeared to be an ordinary artifact, its historical significance endowed it with immense value. He speculated that it could have been a soul tool intended for storage purposes. Shuan Yu inquired about the coin's worth, and Lei reassured him that this find would secure their future cultivation resources without worry. Shuan Yu knew that Lei purchased the coin himself, so he insisted that it belonged solely to him and should not be shared. Lei, however, was offended by his words. He declared that if Shuan Yu continued to think like that, he would no longer consider him a close friend. Friendship meant sharing, and that's how it should be. Shuan Yu gave him a warm smile and promised not to bring it up again. He offered a sincere apology as well. Lei told him that material wealth paled in comparison to companionship. He also asserted that since Shuan Yu already had Shu with him, he could have Munkin all to himself. Shuan Yu, who still thought of Lei as a child in his eyes, suggested that her strong personality might not be easily won over unless he proved himself stronger. Lei, however, resolved that he would become a master summoner one day, and he's confident that he would match her standards. He then turned his attention to the coin and suggested to Shuan Yu that they set aside their discussion and focus on it. With a decisive flick, he tossed the coin to the ground and commanded it to open, but to their astonishment, the coin transformed into a small green pouch. Lei excitedly announced that their efforts had paid off. They then eagerly opened the pouch, but their excitement turned to shock when they discovered a baby gorilla inside. Lei shouted in shock, which echoed through the room. Shuan Yu, equally puzzled, asked what was happening. Lei gathered the courage and touched the small creature, but stumbled back in surprise as he felt that it was surprisingly warm. He wondered aloud if the gorilla was still alive as he looked confused. Shuan Yu looked at the unusual baby gorilla and thought it might be a rare and unknown creature because he hadn't seen anything like it in his books. Lei told him that he wasn't talking about the creature, but about the money and pouch. He was amazed by the idea of a living thing being preserved for thousands of years and was thrilled that it was still alive. Shuan Yu, who was always interested in Lei's surprises, suggested they should have his teacher look at it the next day. Lei agreed, and they made plans for the consultation before he went back to his dorm. After Lei left, Shuan Yu decided to study the 9-colored gem carefully, as he knew it might be very important and needed a thorough investigation. In Shu's meditation room, gentle, glowing energy surrounded her as she meditated. While she focused, she suddenly felt an eerie touch and mentally reached out to her parents as she hoped for their presence. A floating shark increased her anxiety and made her sweat, even though she tried to stay focused. The cold sensation around her made her feel uncomfortable, as if she didn't belong and longed to be human again. She thought about her enemy being dead and her quest for revenge being completed, but she felt a deep emptiness and struggled with a life without purpose. As she felt herself sinking, she tried to rise as she knew that her revenge had ended. She didn't want to live in pain and directionless anymore. In her thoughts, she saw a man who had helped her defeat her enemy, a person who offered her a new life filled with love and kindness. She thought of Shuan Yu and noticed he looked like the man from her past. She wondered if they were connected. A sudden breeze brought her back to her purpose. As she opened her eyes, she saw 3 pink rings and 1 black ring, which made her wonder if her martial soul had finally awakened. As she became a 4-ring soul master, she wondered if her journey had led her to achieve something important. In Shuan Yu's meditation room, the air was full of energy. The item old Shu had given him was placed in front of him and glowed with a magical blue light. He held the box from the auction and slowly lifted the lid to reveal the gemstone inside. As soon as the gemstone was exposed, it started to shine with bright, colorful energy, and light sparkled off its surface. Suddenly, Shuan Yu saw a vision of dragons flying through the clouds, and it felt like he was in a mountain landscape. He looked around, confused by the view, and wondered about the mystery of this weird place. Shuan Yu looked in shock at the strange sight before him with dragons falling from the sky. He was confused and questioned if all these dragons were really dead. A deep sadness suddenly overwhelmed him and made him feel heavy. He saw a white dragon who lay still on the ground, and it looked like this place had become a dragon graveyard. The dragon's thorn was broken, and other fallen dragons made the scene even more sorrowful. It felt like he had found a final resting place for the dragon clan. Above him, he noticed a strange red energy and saw a huge black dragon with its head badly damaged. The dragon shone with 9 bright colors, almost looking divine. Shuan Yu wondered why its head was destroyed. The dragon fell to the ground, which brought him back to reality. The surrounding silence made him question whether what he had seen was just a dream, yet the intense anger in his heart felt all too real. He realized the gemstone that had been in his hand was missing. He searched for it but started feeling a strange energy flowing through his chest. The familiar bloodline fluctuations were gone, replaced by something new and unknown. To understand this change, he focused his spiritual power inward. He was amazed to see the bloodline vortex inside him. The once separate double-colored bloodlines were now blending smoothly without any conflict. At the core of the vortex, the colorful light had grown 10 times larger and shone in 9 vivid colors. It became clear to him that the gemstone had somehow connected his bloodline with that of the dragon god. Suddenly, a burst of light erupted from his chest and revealed an intricate engraving, 9 colored scales like those of the dragon god. As energy swirled around him, his body changed dramatically. Scales began to form on different parts of his body. A ring appeared on his finger, and a spear was in his hand. With this new strength, he held the spear, and the sky seemed to open up for him. The purple light from the spear sliced through the air as he stood in amazement and admired the transformation and the power he now had. Shuan Yu stood in his transformed state and gripped his spear with a sense of curiosity. He remarked to himself how a simple movement of his hand had sent a surge of power through him, which left him to wonder what kind of ability this new form granted him. Then suddenly, he felt a strange pull within, which forced him to grit his teeth. In an instant, his body reverted back to its original form. He took a moment to gather his confused thoughts. The double-colored vortex that had once swirled in his chest was gone and replaced by a glowing, multicolored core. As he processed the change, his fingers brushed against something cool hanging from his neck, and his eyes fell on the locket resting there. He gripped the gemstone and murmured to himself as he realized the scale had shifted again, now turned back into a 9-colored gem. His gaze lingered on the pendant as he observed the radiating colors of energy around it, and his thoughts got clouded with confusion and curiosity.